Get ready to dive deep into Buffalo's vibrant music scene because we're stepping inside the fabulous Flamingo Lounge for the 8th season of local music magic. In the Flamingo Lounge with Rockabilly Greg is more than just a podcast. It's a collection of stories that delves deep into the vibrant musical history of Buffalo and Western New York, creating a living archive where each story adds a unique thread to the overall narrative. This season, we're taking a deep dive into the heart of the music community. Join us for personal conversations with musicians and industry pros, where we celebrate the collective creativity that makes our favorite artists, venues, and events so special. But before we get started, I'd like to give a big shout out to our sponsors, CatsLikeUs.com, Diamond Hawk Golf Course and Pub, and valued supporter Buffalo Ironworks for helping to keep the music alive. Buffalo, New York's Ghetto Block penned dramatic and emotional punk anthems that confront the weight of growing up queer and Catholic, the pain and confusion of trying to reconcile that your true self and the eyes of the church is a one-way ticket to eternal suffering, and the catharsis that comes with being brave enough to shed your shame, come out of the closet, and step into the light. Inspired by singer-songwriter Sal Mastracola's childhood as a bisexual Catholic kid growing up in the Bronx, New York, and the early 2000s punk and hardcore that helped him find his way through the darkness. It's my pleasure to welcome to the Flamingo Lounge, Sal Mastracola.
Hey.
Hey, Sal.
How's it going?
Good. So I actually was introduced to you by Sally Schaefer.
Yes.
Says, man, you got to get Sal on. He's
one of the other legendary Sals of Buffalo.
Yes. But as I mentioned before we got on the air, I always like to start the podcast asking my standard Flamingo Lounge question, which is, did you have an aha moment when you said music's what you want to do?
I feel like I've had several of them because my relationship with music has, as all of our relationships with music do, has evolved, you know. But I can distinctly remember like the first time where I was like, wow, playing music is the juice.
Right.
And I started out as a drummer. My dad was a drummer, or is a drummer. And there was a drum set at in my grandma's basement. Mm-hmm. And I did like, snare drum in elementary school and stuff, and marching band kind of stuff. And I always thought that was okay, but it didn't really, it didn't light me on fire, And I loved going to my grandma's house. We would take the 34 bus down there and go in the basement. I would just bang on the drums. And I was like, this is so cool. And eventually, like, I just kept pestering my dad and eventually convinced him to let me bring that to our house.
Okay.
So we brought the drum kit back to our house. And my friend Michael Nallen, rest in peace, came over with his guitar. He was one of the few kids in my class who had a guitar. And he had an electric and an acoustic, but his electric had broken a string or something. So he was like, I got to bring the acoustic.
Right.
But he had like a distortion pedal. So he like ran the acoustic through a distortion pedal. It was an acoustic electric.
Right.
And we played like, like some Green Day songs and like Lit and like, just whatever kind of was on the radio in the late 90s kind of rock station type stuff,
Right.
And the stuff I could barely play. But I remember like playing My Own Worst Enemy and just, that da da ga ga do ga 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 da da, and just like hitting those, fills and stuff in sync with him, and just like feeling the connection, between two people playing music. And I was just like, I'm getting chills thinking about it now. It's just like, whoa, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, this is magic. This is like, and I've been chasing that ever since, I guess.
Right. Once it gets in, it never goes, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that was kind of the start of it all, I think. And then I like immediately after that was like, I got to start a band. And probably didn't actually start a band because that was probably like 6th or 7th grade. I didn't start my first band until high school, but
all right.
It took a little while, but
wow, that's cool that it was like just 6th grade.
You're
feeling it. Yeah.
We were young. Yeah. It was probably like, 6th or 7th grade. Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. Mm-hmm. So once you got to high school and was it a punk band you put together?
Yeah. Then I fell pretty hard for punk music. I just, there was a lot of it in the cultural zeitgeist at that time, right? With Green Day, with Blink-182 kind of being on the radio. And that was the stuff I initially like loved Blink. But I had my friend Andrew's older sister had a boyfriend who was like a super cool guy who drove a Mitsubishi Eclipse and like,
Yeah.
had every CD imaginable. And he was like, no, this is not real punk. Like, I'm going to turn you on to the real stuff.
Okay.
And gave me like a NoFX CD. So it wasn't even like,
Okay.
like, not that NoFX isn't real punk. It is.
Right.
But, with a statement like that, you think he'd be like, here's Nevermind the Bollocks or something. But it was Pump Up the Volume by NoFX. And like, I just remember hearing that and just being like, this is so cool. It's like fast, but there's tons of vocal harmonies. The guitar playing is just insanely technical. And that they became my favorite band for a long time. So my first band was like, we were like, we want to be NoFX. We want to do NoFX covers,
right.
We did a lot of NoFX covers, Minor Threat covers, MXPX, just kind of like the standard sort of 90s, late 2000s, early 2000s punk kid fare, and that band, it had many names, but the first iteration of it was called IHOP, which stood for International House of Punk.
Okay. There you go.
And then we changed our name a couple times. Eventually we couldn't figure out a name. So we decided on calling it To Be Decided.
Okay.
So
there you go. Did you initial it TBD?
We did. Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We had a website. It was
cool.
TBD-NYC
right.
and,
it kind of almost, Elvis had the TCB. So, taking care of business. So
okay.
Could have had the little, and then he had a lightning bolt with a flash. So
there you go. The acronym, the power of it. Right.
There you go.
So yeah, that was kind of the start of it all. And, eventually I made my way to songwriting. There's a couple more steps to get there, but I think, drumming just wasn't enough for me. I felt the need to express through music and in a way that drumming couldn't do, so yeah.
Yeah. So now, do you play a different instrument or guitar, or what are you playing?
Yeah. So now it's primarily guitar. In Gato Black, I kind of do all the songwriting, and a lot of that happens on the guitar.
Sure.
So and on the records I play all the guitar and the bass. Actually, that's not true. Some there are people who have played bass on the records, and some people have added some guitar parts and stuff, but it's primarily me doing most of it.
Sure. Okay.
But guitar is kind of the main thing. I do find myself wanting to get back into drums, because it's just fun. It's just more physical to do, and I wonder, it's been like a very long time since I really played. I was in the last band I was in that I played drums in was probably when I was, like 23 or something like that.
Right.
And I'm almost 40 now. So it's been a long time. So I wonder, with what I know now about music, if I would approach it differently, or, just how I could kind of rediscover that,
Right.
So I don't know. I should probably
get
the drum set up from my parents' house
there
here. It's all coming full circle.
Yeah. Well, it's a journey though. That's what the fun part is though, right?
Yeah.
Because if you knew what you did now, then
it
might be totally different,
Oh yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Well, it's funny. We were before we got on air, we were talking about All and my buddy Scott Reynolds, he did the same thing. He started out on drums and went to vocals, and then now, of course, he plays guitar and sings, and that's kind of the same kind of progression. He says, I thought it would be more fun out front.
Yeah.
Just, not having to worry about playing the instrument, just kind of singing and doing his thing. And he writes a lot. So it's,
I've always found that the best songwriters that I know started out as drummers. I don't know. There's just some, in particular when it comes to like the rock world,
right.
Like, a couple of local people who I think of, Michael Hansen, who's the drummer in Gato Black, also has an amazing project called Hotel Etiquette that I play guitar in. Tyler Bagwell.
Yep.
Drummer. Josh Martin, who's a guitarist in Gato Black. He has a post-rock project called Thought Trials, but he started out as a drummer. I don't know. There's something about,
Right.
you understand the rhythm and you understand how to make a rock song or a
Right.
punk song, give it the drive that it needs,
Mhm.
and I think that really goes a long way.
Now, it's interesting you mentioned Tyler, because I've had him on the podcast twice. He never mentioned that he drummed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I mean, talk a lot about the history and the guitar playing and everything he did, but never mentioned the drums. So that's an interesting tidbit. So
Yeah, when we first, so I'm married to his sister.
Mhm.
So when we first couple times we met, like at his parents' house, we're jamming, and
Right.
switching off on drums and guitar and stuff, and
Oh,
so
cool.
we kind of bonded over that. Yeah.
Right.
So
Now, I'm not well versed in punk, although they always say I'm a rockabilly guy. They always say punk rockers go to rockabilly to die, right? And but what makes punk, and I see that because I had a picture there of Allison Mitchell from Velvet Bethany, when she was on, because she's got a punk band. She's
Mhm.
people told me I wasn't punk enough.
Mm.
It's like, what makes punk?
Mm.
I mean, I love to talk about genre, because
Yeah.
genres just kind of blend, and like
Oh,
you said, Green Day's punk, and then there's Sex Pistols, right?
Right.
So it's
Uh-huh.
like such a wide swath of, and everything in between that's considered punks. But
Yeah.
like, is it an instrumentation? Is it an attitude? Like, what kind of is that thing?
Mm.
Like, I would say for rockabilly, it's the twang.
Yeah.
It's a rocky twang. It would,
Mhm.
no matter what you do, that's kind of the the
Mhm.
nucleus of it.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's certainly the attitude, I think, in a lot of ways. The speed, I think.
Mm.
Not that all punk songs are fast, but I
Sure.
feel like, some of the best ones are,
Right.
I mean, but yeah, like you said, like, the best punk band of all time is The Clash, in my opinion. And like their records spanned so many genres, and
Right.
they got so far away from it, but you would still probably call Combat Rock a punk record,
Sure.
even
Right.
though it's very far removed in some aspects. So yeah, I guess you could boil it down to the attitude.
There you go. Yeah. The Clash, my first concert.
No way, really?
The Who, The Clash, and David Johansen
Wow.
played the stadium here in Buffalo, 1982.
That's incredible.
September. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just started college at SUNY Fredonia, and never went to a concert when I was in high school, because my older brother was always going up and getting stoned at the Odd. So he didn't want little brother tag,
Yeah.
coming and seeing him and narking into mom and dad. So
Oh, I thought you were gonna say he was like just being protective, but no, he's
nah,
like,
he's
narc.
well, he was. God bless him. He's no longer with us, but he was very protective of me, and he always had. But as far as that goes, like,
Yeah.
no, I always was to tag along too, so he knew I had that. Oh well, that small town thing, right?
Yep.
So, but no, that's interesting to know, and of course, a lot of people just think about punk, that punk rockers don't know how to play their instruments, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But
Classic.
it's not true.
No, it's not.
Not
Yeah.
true at all.
No, it's not. It's not. And that's something I feel like, I obviously, like, punk music was my first like genre that I really loved. Played in a bunch of shitty punk bands in high school. And then like, kind of moved away and like from that and sort of moved into the more of the subgenres and the offshoots,
Mhm.
post-hardcore, emo, things like that, indie rock,
Right.
And then my last project before this was actually like a synth pop project.
Mm-hmm.
So with part of the mission, I guess, or the thrust of Gato Black was wanting to get back into punk music, wanting to get back into all the stuff that I loved when I was 16, 17.
Mm-hmm.
But, coming at it with this new perspective of everything I've learned, kind of going. And I think, that's the common thing that people think is that like, oh, punk music is easy. It's easy to play this. Like, it's easy to play it bad.
Right.
Yes. Power chords are easy to play bad, poorly. But yeah, no, it's not that. It's not as easy as people think.
Right. I know it's like metal. I mean, I had a friend who says, man, you show me a good metal player and I'll show you a jazz player.
Mm.
Yeah. They have jazz chops,
that.
and that's why they can play.
Yeah, I believe
metal.
That.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's to strip it down, and as you can tell, I'm an Elvis fan. And of course, Scotty Moore, his guitar player was a jazz guy. And Sam Phillips kept saying, simplify. But even you go to like the charts of That's All Right, and he's got 13ths in there. He's got 11ths in there. He's got some pretty crazy jazz chords in that song, although it seems pretty stripped down, but it's actually not. And I know it's been stripped down, over the years.
You're gonna have to give me a like a Elvis recommendation on where I should start, because it's I noticed that immediately when I went in here. There was lots of Elvis memorabilia, and that's another thing. Tyler, huge Elvis fan.
Yeah.
But I never really, like, obviously I know the hits, but I never really like dove deep. Like, I want to listen to some records,
Right.
So if you got records you would recommend, or what albums, or
Well, of course, the one with the pink and the green letters.
Okay.
It's just Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably a quintessential.
The one that London Calling ripped off of.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. And what got me started on Elvis was the '68 comeback special.
What is that? What was that?
That was a TV special that happened in 1968. Elvis did all those crappy movies during the 60s. I mean, they got worse as they went along, and his manager, Colonel Parker, kept making him do it. And he finally said, I want to get back. I want to entertain again. So they decided to do a Christmas special. And, been some different stories I've heard. And in the recent Elvis movie that Baz Luhrmann did, Colonel Parker wanted it to be more Christmassy, and Elvis was like, no. And that's when they came up with If I Can Dream, and which is a great song that Elvis sings, because he won all of his he only won 3 Grammys, and they were all for gospel music.
Huh.
He never won a Grammy for any rock and roll.
Huh.
And
that seems...
Yeah, because he was a gospel guy, and he had gospel. All of his backing bands were... vocalists were gospel quartets, the Stamps and the Imperials and the Jordanaires in the 50s. And so when he did this special, he just went back to the raw Elvis. And there was a part of the show they filmed. They kind of say it was like the first unplugged concert. It was just him, a couple of his former bandmates from the 50s, Scotty Moore, DJ Fontana, played drums on the back of a guitar case with some sticks, and they just sang some tunes. He had this great black leather suit on, and was in great shape. He was like 33 years old, and they only showed a little bit of it for this Christmas special, but in the late 70s, we were one of the first ones to have home box office, and they showed the whole uncut show, and I'm like,
oh wow,
damn, that was really, it was so raw, and it was just so powerful, and it was so emotional, because he just stripped it all out, right, and just kind of no big instrumentation. And then that's when he started kind of the Vegas years, and started going in that direction, and then he got the jumpsuits and all that kind of stuff, and somewhat became a little bit of a caracature of himself as time went on, but still was. I never unfortunately got to see him live, but but people that I do know who saw him live, even in the late 70s, are like, even though he was heavy, he was still absolutely dynamic. Just a presence on stage, and cool. Just great stuff. But so I would recommend that. I'm sure you can find it. There is a record called, I'll have to show it. I have it. I think it's called Elvis in Memphis, and it's got a lot of those tracks on it. And of course the self-titled Elvis Presley, and also back then in the 50s, 50 Million Elvis Fans Can't Be Wrong. It's kind of a greatest hits, his first greatest hits. So it's kind of, but you want to hear some of the stuff that's not the hits too.
Yeah, totally.
Because it's so, he just, the real early stuff, he just had that just raw, guttural kind of, he was singing it from his soul. It was not polished. It was, that's what I like the most, I think, especially about rockabilly. It's just the stuff that's just kind of there. People are jamming. People are, even people when they come down here and record, I just love the, I got no fancy equipment. I just do it, and what comes out. And to me, I'm like, yeah, that's, let's not polish it or smooth it up at all.
That's awesome.
I mean, you mentioned synth pop. I mean, my wife's loves synth pop. To me, that's just way too smooth.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, stop, because
It
she
is
loves
very
Depeche
smooth,
Mode,
yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
and
I love Depeche Mode. Huge
yeah,
Depeche
and
Mode
they're
fan.
great live. She took me to a show a bunch of years ago, and I'd never seen them live, and I said, I remember them. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and I says, I remember them, but I didn't care for them because their records, again, were too. But when we saw them live, I'm like, man, these guys were great. I
Yeah.
said, if their records sounded like that, I said, I'd buy every one of them. They were great.
The band that really like kind of, I think like was the linchpin one for me that kind of really turned me on to that whole genre was Tears for Fears.
Yeah.
Because like obviously, you know, everyone knows everybody wants to rule the world and stuff.
Right.
But like there's lots of like really awesome guitar stuff on those records.
Mhm.
And just like the way they structure songs is super interesting. I mean, it's just like really intelligent for something that, and that's I'm not trying to diminish Tears for Fear. Like it's what's the word? It's not intelligent. It's just like really like smart pop music, you
Right.
know, like,
Yeah.
and that's why like, I don't know, like that whole, like there's a lot of modern pop music I like, don't get me wrong, but I
Right.
feel like that sort of 80s era of
Yeah.
pop music, there was just like, it was a cut above, you know?
Yeah. Well, there was something to it. I mean, I'm from the MTV generation, so
Mhm.
I mean, I remember when Video Killed the Radio Star came
Mhm.
on, and unfortunately, they just pulled the plug finally on
I
MTV.
heard.
But you know, the '80s that's where I learned Stray Cats. That's where I found Squeeze. That's where I found Talking Heads, and you
Mhm.
know, a lot of local radio wasn't playing that kind of stuff up
Sure.
here, you know, in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Like I said, I grew up down in Fredonia, but you know, listen to the Buffalo stations, and they weren't playing a lot of that. But then
Mhm.
kids would come up to college for, you know, from the island and from New York City, and bring all that great music, and it was on
Yeah.
MTV, and it's like, this is really cool,
Yeah.
you know. And yeah, all those bands were just so cool, you know.
Mhm.
And I go back to that. That's the kind of stuff that, you know, kind of still gets to me, and
Sure.
you know, but of course, some of it, you know, some of it was very polished, because then they were doing all kinds of videos. I mean, you had to do a video back
Mhm.
then too. It's
Yep.
like, couldn't get away from it. Let's
Right.
you know, the video almost was what back then is what launched the song,
Right.
right?
Yep. Mhm.
So, and then I think Thriller kind of
That was
took it to a
peak video,
pinnacle, and then
yeah.
it's like, yeah, how do you compete with that? So,
Yeah, you can't.
you know. But I got to see Michael Jackson on his victory tour when he
Oh,
was
that's
yeah,
cool.
at the arena. So that was
Nice.
'84, I think. So right,
Awesome.
that was kind of at his pinnacle too, I think.
Yeah,
So when
for
right
sure.
after, I always ask people, it's like, Off the Wall or Thriller, go. You know?
Yeah, I'd have to. I just know Thriller a little better,
Mhm.
so yeah, I'd have to go with Thriller probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like them both. They're
Yeah.
both really, I mean, good stuff. But so getting back to you. So now, how
Yeah.
did you get from New York to Buffalo?
How'd I get from New York to Buffalo? That is I met my wife, Erin Bagwell, in 2010 or something like that,
Mhm.
2011, something like that. And we worked together at this tech startup in Manhattan. And you know, started dating in secret, but everyone knew. We thought we were slick, but everyone knew, you know. You know, came up to Buffalo for the first time, maybe, you know, 6 months after that or something like that. And I really loved it. I thought, I don't know, I loved the character of the place. I loved the grit of it.
Mhm.
And you know, continued to just keep coming up here with her. We got married up here in her parents' backyard. You know, so I was coming up here like once or twice a year, every
Mhm.
year, and just, you know, Tyler is a great Buffalo historian, as you
Right.
know. So
Yes.
every time I'd be here and every place we'd go to, I'd get the full history, you know,
Yeah.
of the feud that happened at this wing place, or, you know, Rick James, this, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of really my, you know, I just continue to grow and appreciate it.
Right.
And then when COVID hit, Aaron and I had our first kid at that point, and we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and we were just like, we should just go live with your parents, because they closed the playgrounds down,
Right.
and I had to work from the home. We were both working from home, and it was just like, we're going stir crazy. Let's go up to Buffalo. So we were up here for a while, a couple months. And then we went back to Brooklyn, and, in my head, we were always going to move to Buffalo because, I'm from New York City originally, from the Bronx. And New York City is like pretty much untouchable at this point, unless, you're a Russian billionaire, like
Right.
financially, it's just very hard. And I was like, I will die before I move to New Jersey.
Right.
And like, that's what it was looking like. It was
Right.
like, well, if we want to be able to afford anything,
Yeah.
we're going to have to go to Jersey, and I love New Jersey. I'm not trash talking New Jersey,
Right.
but I'm not going to live in New Jersey so I can, get on a train an hour and a half into New York City.
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
What I love about Buffalo is that you can get anywhere in 15 minutes,
Yep.
And it's New York State, and so I was like, hey, we should move to Buffalo, and Aaron was kind of like, no, I don't know if I'm ready to go back yet.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be weird. I don't know. But we thought on it, and we just decided to do it. Luckily, I was able to convince our landlord to let us out of our lease. I bought him a bottle of tequila.
That always works.
Yeah. And then we moved up here, and we've been here it's been like maybe 5 years or so now.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to even go backwards. So at the top of the show, we mentioned about you growing up Catholic and queer, and that, I mean, how did that kind of have anything to do also to you wanting to get out of that environment, or what was that like? I mean, I can only imagine. And I mean, my wife and I are very, very involved. Actually, she's at the Botanical Gardens tonight. She's on the board of Niagara Pride. And,
cool.
As they're tabling down there. I can't remember. They have a yearly event, and she's like, "Can you go?" I'm like, "Nah, I got to record." So,
yeah.
But and I've also been very involved with another group called the Imperial Court of Buffalo, and we're big allies of the community, and so it's something kind of near and dear. But trying to understand what the hell the big deal is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was very, my family still is very, very highly religious. I mean, we were, it was church every Sunday. I went to Catholic school. I was an altar boy. I worked in the church. My first job was like working in the rectory, answering phones. I don't even think I had my working papers. They're like, yeah, sure, you can work here. So, yeah, I mean, it was such a very serious part of my life, and just the way that it shaped my view of the world. And, when I, kind of really started to realize that I was a little bit gay, that, I think it was very hard to reconcile those two things, because, there was in the early 90s, in the 90s, not as bad as what, some of my my older relatives who are queer experienced, in the 70s, but like it was pretty homophobic, and there was lots of, like being gay was about the worst thing you could be. So, there was a lot of internalized homophobia, I think, that I kind of got from that as well. But I do remember like just reading the catechism of the Catholic Church in school, and the bits about homosexuality and what it means if you act on it, and like trying to like ask my teachers and stuff, like religion teachers, like is that really true? Like if you're gay, like you're just, and you act on it at all, like you're done, you're cooking,
Exactly.
And they were like, yeah, like the church is compassionate to gay people, but if you ever act on it, like you will go to hell. And that was just like, for me, this kid who had really, been so heavily involved in the church and raised in the church, and given some of my energy, being an altar boy and all this stuff to the church, it just like kind of felt like a little bit of a betrayal or something.
Right.
It was just like, well, what the fuck? Like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm such a good Christian boy.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go to hell for this. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to look at me for who I am,
Yeah.
and like, look at God's not going to look at all the cards I have out on the table and, and judge me for the content of my character or whatever.
Right.
And that was kind of the first like cracks started to happen there, And there was a lot of other things that I think drove me away from the church. My mom died when I was, basically, she had an aneurysm, and like, I never met her. She basically died in childbirth, essentially.
Okay.
I found it very hard to kind of, just accept that any kind of just God could allow that. And there was all this other things with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely very, very isolating, and didn't feel good to grow up in that way.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And that just kind of, I think, led me to kind of, walk away from it all eventually.
Yeah. Now, how did that all translate into Gato Black?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't really publicly out till somewhat recently. It's been, within the last couple of years. And I'd always been, I think one of the reasons I was drawn to songwriting was because I was holding this big secret, and I could just play guitar and express what I was feeling, using coded language or using metaphor, and things, but I'm still saying it, and I could still get up in front of a crowd of people and say these things and release, how I was feeling, and no one had to know,
Right.
because I was writing a song that, where it was like the Bruce Springsteen style thing where you're telling a story, about
Right.
someone else,
Yeah.
but it's actually me. Or, I'm using the metaphor of, being lost in the wilderness and slowly, dying from a sickness or something, whatever.
Right.
There's a lot of my songs. If you go back in my earlier projects, there's lots of coded metaphors in there, but part of the intention with this Gato thing was to kind of reconnect with my younger self. And I just, remember when I went to make this album, Sky is Blue, talking to Mike Hansen, the drummer. And he's kind of like my main like writing partner. Like we I'll bring the songs to him and he'll say, let's move this part here or change this chord or whatever.
Sure.
He's kind of a producer, arranger, kind of an incredible songwriter in his own right. And we were talking about albums we loved that inspired the record. And he was like, one that came up was this Have Heart album, who's like a early 2000s, mid 2000s, like, a hardcore band. It's called Songs to Scream at the Sun. And he was like, that record just sounds like somebody sat you down, looked you dead in the eyes and said, tell the truth.
Right.
And that just hit me like a bolt of lightning. I was just like, holy shit. Like, if I'm going to make a good record, I have to tell the truth. Like, I can't fucking hide behind this anymore. I've been doing this I've been hiding behind it. I've been dancing around it. I've been writing about it in metaphors for 15 years or whatever, however long it's been. I'm bad at math.
Right.
I need to, like, if I want to make something great, I need to be honest. I need to tell the truth. And that just, it was like a light bulb went off, and it was just like, oh my God, like I need to like stop holding this in. And it honestly, like it was healing for me, because I had never talked about any of this stuff really. Right. I mean, there was a couple, my wife knew, like a couple of close friends and,
Sure.
my siblings, but really it wasn't a thing I broadcasted or anything like that,
Right.
So this was sort of, it was like, okay, like if I'm gonna make this record, I'm going to have to, it's all just like, it has to happen,
Yeah.
So I might as well lay it all out there, And so yeah, I ended up like it just caused me to kind of reflect on a lot of those feelings and moments in the past, and kind of go back to what it felt like to be, to feel betrayed by the church for the first time, or betrayed by God, or deal with my parents' homophobia, deal with all those things, all those feelings and things,
Right. Yeah.
And it was a way to process them,
Mhm. Now, is this out on record at this point, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came out in October, and it's on vinyl and CD.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then I have to get it on vinyl,
Yes.
especially. So,
Yeah,
well, I
you
got to
got
get it on
plenty of
both.
vinyl
So
on here.
now let me ask you this, kind of a totally different question.
Sure.
Is there a difference between the vinyl and the CD from a sound quality standpoint?
Yeah, they're mastered differently.
Mhm.
So for sure, before you even talk about the physical nature, they are two different
Yeah.
masters.
Right.
I'm actually a CD guy. I love CDs. I
Okay.
have so
Yeah.
many CDs, and when CDs kind of went out for a
Sure.
while, it really bummed me out, and I switched to vinyl just because everyone was putting out vinyl, and
Mhm.
I've always had vinyl. I've been on the vinyl thing for a while, because that was kind of, my dad gave me a box of my mom's old vinyl records, and
Okay.
that was kind
Oh,
of one
nice.
of the things that
Wow.
connected me to her,
Sure. Yeah.
and she was a big Clash head, Springsteen, she loved Squeeze that you
Right.
mentioned.
Yeah.
She had a couple of those, Joe Jackson,
Mhm.
like things like that. So I had a lot of her stuff, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like the way vinyl sounds too, don't get me
Right.
wrong, and I love the experience of listening to vinyl.
Yeah.
But I have 2 kids, so it's hard to listen to vinyl. I did
Yeah.
get them. I have been getting them. I've gotten them a couple vinyl.
Mhm.
We went record shopping the other day at
Mhm.
Revolver, and my older daughter picked out the Chapel Roan record, and
Oh,
I was
nice.
like, and it's a good record. I
Yeah.
really like that record, but it was like $40, and
Yeah.
and that was the moment where I was like, I'm gonna get you a CD player for Christmas.
Yeah.
So I got her a CD player
Yeah.
for Christmas,
Yeah.
or Santa did,
Mhm.
yeah. So now we've been buying her CDs,
Right.
and that's much more economical.
Yeah. Well, I say that because I have, during COVID, I got Taylor Swift's Evermore and Folklore
Mhm.
on both vinyl and CD. And to me, and the same with Grosh, they came out with a new record last year around March. And I listened to it, and the vinyl and the CD have a different quality to it. It's almost like they're two different records.
Yeah.
Because again, they always say vinyl softens,
Right.
it's a warmer sound. And yeah, because it's kind of smoothing out. You get into the center of the record, and again,
Right.
it's got to be, mixed and mastered differently because
Yeah.
of the needle going around and all that good kind of stuff. And I had Anthony Casuccio, who's president of the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame and also a sound engineer. He's like, yeah, he says CD's actually got more range to it.
I've heard
And
that.
he
as
says,
well.
he says, you won't like my answer, but I love CDs more than vinyl. And I'm not a total CD snob.
Yeah.
As you can see, I got a lot of them.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of it because some stuff's only available on CD.
Right.
And
Yeah.
some stuff I collect is only available on vinyl. Or you go back to 60s, it's 45s, right?
Right.
That's what they were making at the time, right?
Yeah.
So if I want to collect the stuff that I like, that's but I can hear, Taylor Swift's, they have a different feeling when they're on CD because they're a little more crunchier, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They're a little, they're so almost perfect. They don't have the edges smoothed over.
Yep.
So it has a little bit more of an edgier quality to it. So,
Yeah.
and I would think that would be absolutely conducive to punk, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this record, we recorded it, went down to a studio in New Jersey called Sound Acres. And this is the first time I ever got to go somewhere to make a record. And it's been a lifelong dream of mine.
Okay.
So me and Mike went down for 5 days in May, and then we went back for another 5 days in August. And I mean, yeah, it was an incredible experience.
Right.
And we used all the best gear, and
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, I want to listen to it on the CD where I can hear all the little
Sure.
nuances.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, now is it just the two of you guys in Gato Black, or is there?
yeah, I mean, it's really like we have a band that plays live and stuff,
Sure.
but I kind of just call it like my project because I do all the songwriting and all there's so many other things besides music now you have to do for a band, right? All the marketing and the visual storytelling and all of that, the design and all that. But yeah, in terms of like who's actually really like making the music, it's really me and Mike. And then we did have my friend Christian Adams played bass on the whole entire record, which was really cool. He's played with the live band for a while. He doesn't play with us anymore, but he had never really recorded, I think maybe a song or two on some of the early EPs, but he did the whole record. And then Josh Martin, the guitarist in the live band, contributed some really cool lead parts to a bunch of the songs. So.
Right. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah. So we did all that when we got back to Buffalo. Okay. So it was kind of a weird process. Like, it's an 11-song record and we did it in 10 days in the studio. So, I mean, we were working hard, and we didn't record any bass at all, which was actually kind of a little bit of a weird way to do it. Wow. But me and Mike just knew the songs inside out. And so it all worked out. Right. And it's punk. So there, it's always really kind of following what the guitar is doing, know? So it worked out.
Yeah. Where did you record the bass?
We have a practice space down by Shays. And so we went down there and I have a little interface and, just kind of did it all direct in and then sent it to Gary and, he did his thing with it and made it sound better.
It's crazy what you can do nowadays, right?
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, really having the tricked out studios is cool, right? But not necessarily necessary.
Yeah, I mean,
in some respects,
it's not. But also, like, I don't know. It's after that experience, I'm like, man, I never want to make another record any other way again. I was spoiled, and just working with Gary, like, he's from a band called Crime and Stereo, who is a band that. Legendary Long Island hardcore band, and like was very big when I was growing up and stuff. And so he just has incredible taste, just knows exactly what I'm trying to do because we kind of are from the same pool of, a little bit. And I mean, he's just a killer producer and just has such a great sense for how to serve the song. And, he really helped push these songs to be the best they could be. So that's kind of a big part of it. It's like, well, I just want to make another record with him again, but you got to get down to Jersey. That's kind of hard. And so.
There you go. Now, when you were growing up in the Bronx, were you hanging out in some really cool joints, listening to some live tunes, I would think?
Yeah, there was a place called the Lowdown that we used to go to, and it was actually in Fleetwood, or it was in Yonkers or Fleetwood, which is like, right there, right next to, it was 10 minutes away. You could take a bus over there, the Westchester Beeline bus. But it was like a basement bar kind of thing. And they would have like on Fridays and Saturdays, sometimes they would have like local bands play. And, it was like, like 13 to 15-year-old kids bands, Yeah. And so those shows were just like so formative. I remember going to one, like convincing my parents to let me go to that was like a thing. They were like, well, I've never heard of this place and and, and I was like, I'm going with Tom, and Tom, they could vouch for, they knew Tom. He seemed like fine, whatever. So yeah, we went to see this band Loser 44, which sounds like if you had a online Blink-182 band name generator or something, right? It's like, there was a couple of other bands too, but I distinctly remember them. I mean, it was just so cool. It was like, oh, here's all these other weirdos that are into the stuff I'm into, and look like, weird punk kids, and whoa, like that girl's wearing black lipstick, like what, and that guy's wearing eyeliner, like what, this is so cool, the spike bracelets, like it was just so awesome, and it just really like, made an impression on me. And there was it was a lot of like church shows and things like that too,
Sure.
church gyms,
Yeah.
high school battle of the bands, things like that. And then when I got a little older, towards the back half of high school, I started going into the city a lot more. And then, go to like CBGBs and Mercury Lounge, stuff like that. So there was, started getting into that. I mean, a lot of those places though, you had to be 21,
Right.
depending on the show, you could kind of get in. But, so, and I moved to Brooklyn when I was like, maybe like 22, and then it like really took off down there,
Sure.
but there was a little bit of it in high school. And, one of my bands played CBGBs and stuff, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, it had to be kind of a vibe.
It
right?
was
I mean,
it was a very validating moment. Like I remember my dad being like, "I'm proud of you," and like
cool.
and he didn't say that very often. I know he is very proud of me, but he wasn't the type to like always be doling that out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
But that was like a big moment. Like he bought me a beer, and I was like, I was like, 17 or 18. Wow. I remember he like bought me a beer and snuck me a beer. Like I was like, whoa, this is cool. Yeah. So CB's, rest in peace.
Yeah.
The most disgusting bathroom of all time.
I can't imagine. Well, I took my daughter down to New York. I used to have to go to New York once a month, I'm in the printing business, and I used to do a lot of business down in New York City. So her uncle was in the music business, and he was playing. They had a band called the Vowels because they were all Italian. So they were all like C-level VPs from like Sony and Atlantic and all this stuff. Because I think at the time he worked for Sony.
Okay.
And so they were playing the Bitter End. I'm like, so I said to my daughter, I said,
yeah,
you and me, we're going down to New York. We're going to see Uncle Adam. We're going to go to the Bitter End. This is cool.
Yeah.
I said, you're going to love it. I said, Simon Garfunkel played there, and all these just great people. Neil Diamond. Neil Diamond had just played a show there like a week before we went.
Cool.
It was in the 2000s, and I think he had come out with like 12 songs, and just played this impromptu show, and they piped it out into the street, and so we get there, and of course it's $10, I don't know, two drink minimum or whatever, and I think she was just 21. So we were good to get in, but sat down, they're playing. I want to go. I'm like, what? We just got here. I said, we're in the Bitter End. She's like, oh, she just wanted to walk around. We were walking around the city 3 a.m, getting Italian ice, buying T-shirts from vendors for $4.
Yeah. There's a lot to see around.
She loved it. That was what she wanted to do. So I'm like, all right. But I'm like, oh man, our one shot to. but I always loved, going to the joints down there when I could. I could get into. One of my contacts, I used to work with Hearst Magazine. She loved music, so she's like, oh, let's go to a show. And I think we went to. Gosh, where did we go to? I don't remember. I was going to go see Robert Gordon with her, and I couldn't get down there, and unfortunately he's no longer with us. So it was like, oh man.
Yeah,
missed my shot at that.
Most of the places we used to play are like not there anymore. Like we used to play Lit Lounge a lot. That was like one of the best spots. National Underground, that's not there. A lot of Brooklyn spots like Silent Barn and Death by Audio, like a lot of those DIY spots, Shea Stadium. Like, I mean, that's just the nature of New York. It's like, like that's the one thing I learned growing up there. It's like, don't get too attached to anything, They're like recently, like one of my favorite childhood pizzerias closed. And I was just like, man, I thought that place would be there forever,
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh, I actually performed once in the Bronx.
Oh, really?
My buddy Adam, who was with Sony, he grew up on Long Island, so his grandmother was in the Fort Schuyler nursing home in the Bronx. And he said, Greg, man, last year, he says, me and the kids, we went to we played. Of course, he plays, and they did a little concert for everybody in the nursing home she was at. So he's like, come on down, bring your Elvis suit. Of course,
hell yeah,
had an Elvis suit. Have 3.
Nice.
But he says, come on down and we'll do it. And a couple months before, he says, hey, Grandma passed. And he says, but still come down. He says, we're going to go and we're going to. and we're going to perform. And we had a ball, and there was one lady. She had an Elvis license plate like right on her walker. And a couple of the ladies are like, "Your Neil Diamond was better than your Elvis." So,
they'll tell you, you know.
oh gosh, they will tell
let
you.
you know how they feel.
And I did a solo show at one of the assisted living places up here, and I ended with My Way. I always do Frank Sinatra's My Way to end, and this little lady, I mean, so she was Sophia Petrillo, right? Had the purse on her elbow. You know, my husband did it his way. And I says, yeah. I says, in what respect? She says, you know how I found out he died? She says, the cops came to my door and said, you'll never guess what your husband did. She's like, oh, no, now what did he do? She says, well, they found him in the arms of another woman.
Uh-oh.
And she said, but you know what? He was good to me. He gave me a daughter, and he never hit me.
Okay.
He was a mafia guy.
All right.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, I'm like, and I'm just listening to her going, all right then.
Oh my God.
That was not a story that I was expecting to hear from that.
The Port Morris nursing home or whatever. What was it called?
The Fort Schuyler nursing home, in the Bronx. Yeah, I can't remember the name of the joint, but we went to an Italian restaurant. Oh my God, the food was just out of this world. And,
that's what I grew up on.
Mhm.
It's very hard for me to.
Yeah.
I feel like I haven't really found a good Italian. The one place here that I like is Lombardo's. Have you been there on Hurdle?
Yeah.
That place is awesome.
Yeah.
But it's not like your everyday. It's like it's fancy, you know? Like,
right.
I just wish I could
Well,
find.
have you ever been up to Fortuna's in Niagara Falls? Oh,
that's the spot.
That's the spot. That's
all right.
My son. That's where my son and my daughter-in-law like. They're like, Dad, we got to go to Fortuna's. So,
okay, Fortuna's.
That's. I mean, that's a real Italian.
That's what I want.
Restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Well, we're getting close to the end, and I want to talk about some of your music, and we're going to play a tune.
Sure.
To end the show. So. I'm assuming off of the new record.
Yeah.
So which song are you gonna
I
let
think
us leave with?
I think let's do Run Forever.
Okay.
It's the last song on the album, and it has one of my favorite lines on the record that ends the record, which is sinners never win, but I don't believe in sin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the moment of it's kind of the resolution on the record. There's a lot of tumult, and the record kind of takes you through loosely. There's some kind of narrative arc there. And all the songs are conceptually kind of about my upbringing and kind of discovering, hating, accepting my queer identity, and this is kind of the first lyric of the song is "Set Me Free." So it's about coming out, and it's about just the freedom, that comes with that. And
right.
and it wasn't easy to get there, but here we are. And it's one of my favorites on the record.
Oh, that's great. Well, Sal, I can't thank you enough for being down here, telling your stories, opening up. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
this is
wonderful. I look forward to hearing the whole album.
Yeah,
and of course, don't go away, kids, because we are going to play the song that Sal was just talking about at the end of the show here. But of course, we gotta do the thing here, and thank everyone for tuning in. As always, you can find the podcast where you find your podcasts at Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audible, thebuffalohive.com, YouTube, and of course, rockabillygreg.com, where it's all about the music. I will have the podcast there. I will also have bio on sale. I know you've got a website.
That's right.
That I'll have the links to. We'll have some videos up there and lots of information so you can find out where Sal's going to be playing next.
Yeah.
When the next record's coming out, where you can find the new record.
Yeah.
Make sure
it's called Sky is Blue, and
okay.
It's on. You can stream it on any streaming platform.
Okay.
Spotify, YouTube,
right.
Apple, and we have. You can, if you want to pick up a record locally, they have them at Black Dots, and you can order them from triplehammerrecords.com.
Okay.
If you want. And want them shipped to you.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it.
That's good to know. So again, thanks, Sal. And the name of the tune again? Because I don't remember anything.
Run Forever.
Run Forever. So thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
You.
Set me free, yeah. I am a shadow of who I used to be, yeah. When I can run forever, flying into heaven before you get into heaven. Well, I guess I'll just sit back for you and wait. Thing is how we both know we're not getting into heaven, 'cause we're too damn brave. Too damn brave. We're sinners. We're no saints, but that's okay. Set me free, yeah. I am a shadow of who I used to be, yeah. When I could run forever, the story's over. Forget your closure. Forget your name and step into the light. Bury me wet up in smoke. Cigarettes and borrowed moments. Stolen from that boy you broke. Crooked nose and 20-something. When life was waiting, anticipating to finally set me free, yeah. Never going back. And love with the darkness until I cracked. Can't run forever. Can't run forever. Can't run forever. Sinners never win, but I don't believe in sin. Sinners never win, but I don't believe in sin. Sinners never win, but I don't believe in sin.
In the Flamingo Lounge is made possible in part by CatsLikeUs.com, your online store for authentic vintage clothing and accessories. Buffalo Ironworks, an intimate live music venue and bar located in the Cobblestone District in downtown Buffalo. And by Diamond Hawk Golf Course and Pub, Western New York's premier golf course, restaurant, and banquet facility. At the Hawk, the bar is hopping year-round with live music every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, and some other nights, too. Tune in for a new episode every Saturday at 9 a.m. EST at rockabillygreg.com, where it's all about the music. Bark, Zoe, bark. Good girl.